Good morning, everybody, and good afternoon over there in London. Today I have Nate here with Diginius to showcase what their company does. And without further ado, we'd love if you could introduce your company and what you do over there.
Thanks, Andy. Yeah, my name is Nate Burke. I'm the founder and CEO of Diginius. So Diginius is a sales and marketing platform that kind of covers the whole internet layer to help companies, particularly kind of small and medium businesses, to understand their whole digital layer. And we specialize in pay-per-click and internet traffic and how to understand that traffic. And I guess in the industry, we're Microsoft Advertising's largest channel partner globally, and we support over 1,000 agencies and all their kind of underlying clients on the Microsoft Ad channel as well.
Well, what are some of the biggest PPC shifts in marketing that you're seeing these days, and what are some of the biggest mistakes that companies make?
I mean, the biggest one now, obviously, is this change to people using large language models so much. And so you see a pretty big shift in traffic from both organic and paid on how people research information. And so that's kind of making things move more now than it has in the last 10, 15 years. I guess we get a lot of questions to how do you get into the AI results? And so that is one area where actually Microsoft has a pretty big advantage, because if you want to get into Copilot or you want to get into your products or your services or anything into there, that's kind of through Microsoft Advertising, because they're kind of leading the way in a lot of those types of areas.
Yeah, so ChatGPT and a lot of those other ones don't have any sort of advertising yet. So I wasn't aware that Microsoft did actually. So they actually have a way that you could advertise within the LLMs.
Yeah. So they've integrated Copilot into all the Microsoft products, and Copilot has kind of native advertising in it from Microsoft Advertising. So there is a good bit of advertising. It performs quite well in there, and we would kind of hypothesize that if these do extend out, like ChatGPT and their relationship with Microsoft, you would kind of think that if they were going to, I mean, there is a lot of talk of them offering ads. Mm-hmm. So we'll see who runs them, if they do it themselves, if they use Microsoft as a partner. We'll see how that goes. But in general, in Microsoft, with Copilot going across all the Microsoft products, so Office Suite, their browsers, all their products, you got over 1 billion users using their products, and it's all Copilot. And within the Copilot results is advertising from Microsoft.
Yeah, and do you see a lot of budgets shifting? Do you see it getting more expensive for PPC, especially with like Google search ads or Microsoft search ads? Or do you see with more options now that the price might actually go down for PPC?
Yeah, typically the price never goes down for PPC.
Unfortunately.
So it's all about just getting, how do you get more efficient? How do you get better tracking? How do you test better? And so forth. And so, like, we've been investing heavily in kind of working out how to do that. And particularly if you're looking at like e-commerce advertising, you've got certain strategies with products. And then if you look at B2B advertising, it's quite different. I think your audience is more B2B. So if we look at that, the way we see to get, like, with all of this, you can now kind of, like, we're working on technology to allow B2B companies to build custom audiences and take, like, let's say if they're selling into real estate companies or doctors or high school principals across the US, to be able to build, either integrate their CRM data or build an audience with exactly those people, and then advertise across all the media channels to exactly those people, whether it's Google, Meta, TikTok, and match to those people, and even do streaming videos on Netflix or Disney Plus and so forth. So we're working on giving kind of normal companies the ability to advertise exactly to the people they want. And we're seeing results of kind of 40 to 400% better yield on their money in those ways. So yeah, that's kind of how we're seeing how to get, even if the price is high on a click, if you can just find those 20,000 people in the world that you want to talk to and only show them your ads, then
Yep.
you would actually pay a lot more than that.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people just don't know how to do the targeting right, so they just kind of spray and pray, and that's why their costs are so high and the ROI is so low.
Yeah, absolutely, and it is very difficult. And not many, the big brands can afford to spray and pray, but not the kind of
Yep.
normal world.
Yeah, and so PPC is definitely still worth it. It's more nuanced now. You got to get a lot more targeted to get some value out of it. You can't just try to show up for every keyword on Google or Microsoft ads and hope you get a good ROI for it.
Yeah, and you got to really work out. Do you have the expertise to do that internally, or do you need to find an agency that
Yep.
has that expertise and kind of partner with them to
Yeah, it's a lot more
do that?
specialized these days. So a lot of times it's better to just work with an expert.
Yeah, and then finding that expert can be. We had so many
Yep.
companies asking us, "How do you do this? Can you help us, or do you know somebody?" And because we work with so many agencies, we kind of know who's good at B2B, who's good at B2C, who's good at big budgets, small budgets, fee structures. And so we've actually set up like a matchmaking program. We kind of
Nice.
interview the client's needs, and then we match them to the right kind of agency that they're looking for in terms of expertise and fee structure. And, are they good at legal? Are they good at automotive? Are they good at retail? That kind of thing.
Yep. Do you see a difference between SMB and enterprise advertising? We talked about like how enterprises can spray and pray a little bit more. They might be doing more brand awareness campaigns, whereas SMBs, if I'm not mistaken, need to be a lot more hyper targeted and specialize in how they're focusing their ad campaigns.
Yeah, the problems are the same for both. It's just the resources are a lot smaller, and so it's yeah, and the data is different. Like in optimizing campaigns, the more data you have, the easier it is, because you can just see what works and see what doesn't. And so when you have a somebody that's got a small budget, and um, you've got to get all the technical setup, you've got to tracking, the targeting, and then look at the data and try to get the results. It's a lot harder for SMBs than it is for the big
Yep.
advertisers, as a result. And so yeah, you got to get really good and precise on it, and try to really identify the core niche, get that to work, get that kind of running well, and then expand out from there.
Yep. Good point. How can businesses identify which keywords or campaigns are really performing well? What kind of KPIs should they be looking for?
Um, it it depends on the type of company. Obviously, if it's if you have a really short sales cycle, then you can just look at revenue.
Yep.
Like, if people are buying within a week or two, or a day or two, like in retail, you can do that.
Yep.
When you get into B2B, it gets a lot more complicated if sales cycles are kind of 6, 12, 24 months.
Yep.
And so what you want to do is look at the lead indicators. Like when they come to your site, what's the bounce rate? What's the time on site? Did they fill out a form? And then kind of work to track through those things. You can often see, just based on the keyword and the traffic and how much time they spend on your site, is that working or not? And then you
Yep.
got to work out, okay, am I buying the wrong keyword, or am I explaining my service wrong? And then you can do the testing of that just on those kind of very early indicators. And then, because it does take, that I've always said, it takes 50% of it is kind of technical analysis, and 50% of it is just getting the the business case right, so the CFO can understand it, so you can
Yep.
know your investment is, if it's leading to something, because it takes so long to go down to the sales funnel and turn into a customer. And then kind of integrating your sales and marketing efforts, so you kind of make sure you're all working together smoothly. And it's different if it's like
Yep.
a sales driven company, or a company that just is a product led growth company where everything happens on the website.
Yep.
You might have different tactics.
Yeah, so a lot of B2Bs could, expect that maybe a customer might not sign up. Well, they might sign up on the first day. That's a good KPI, but they might not purchase anything or get a subscription. But getting them into your marketing funnel is just as important, because now you could get them in your newsletter. You could educate them, maybe hit them with retargeting ads. So over that period of their buyer journey, where maybe they don't have the problem today, but maybe a month, 3 months later, you're top of mind when they're looking to make a move and actually purchase a product or sign up for a subscription.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it takes about 15 to 20 touch points typically to kind of turn a prospect into a customer over a time period, which again, 3-6 months is pretty typical.
Yeah, so don't expect overnight results in B2B advertising.
No, absolutely not. I mean, B2B it's quite tough. We've developed tools as well to identify things like, when people come to your website, they click on an ad, they come spend 2 minutes, but you don't know who they are. Google Analytics will tell you, oh, somebody from Boston was on my site for 2 minutes. They looked at these 3 pages.
Yep.
Well, that's great, but you don't know who they are. So we've developed technology to kind of do reverse IP lookup, match it to the company domain, and then integrate that data into Apollo, so you give the sales teams like, hey, somebody from this company search your website, they spent this time going through it, here's their VP of sales email and phone number, maybe give him a call, see if he's interested, see if he's in market.
That's really powerful. There's platforms like RB2B2 that will even in some cases identify and provide the email of the person. So it sounds like you guys do something similar.
Yeah, that helps. And then we're kind of, what we're working on now as in our R&D is to even put that back into, say, hey, all these people, put them back into an audience, and then you can target them on an audience or email or however you want to, whether it's to sales or marketing.
That's really powerful. So how are people leveraging automation and AI, and how should people incorporate that into their modern PPC strategy?
I mean, the reality is that most companies are going to struggle to develop a use case for a lot of AI in it, but all of the platforms, whether it's Meta or TikTok or Microsoft or Google, they're all developing AI quite a bit into how they serve ads, how they write the ads, and all this. So for example, like with Microsoft owns inventory across a wide plethora of assets. They just bought Activision. They've got all these gaming things. They've got stuff on all their desktops. They've got all this kind of stuff, and trying to buy that is very difficult. And so the way like they're using AI is through a product called PMax, kind of similar to Google PMax, and that you basically kind of profile out what kind of customer you're looking for, and they use that with their AI to automatically kind of match all the different what kind of customer you're looking for and how to do it, and then deliver those, kind of advertise across all these channels that you could never kind of manually do to kind of deliver that customer. So that's quite a common way. I mean, we're working on AI tools to do things like, how do you allocate budget across platforms, or how do you write ads, or how do you AI and content creation. I think a lot of people can use that. That's kind of a straightforward one, where you take your content and you put it into an AI engine, then it chops it up into the kind of the ideal content for each of the different platforms. Because like TikTok, you'll be different content than you would in, say, LinkedIn. And so that's probably one of the more common uses for AI at a user level.
Yeah, and maybe like data analysis on the back end too, looking for trends and patterns in the data that you're getting from your campaigns.
Yeah. If you've got it organized well enough that you can feed it in, then yeah, that definitely is good.
So how do people pick between Google or Microsoft? Should you advertise on both, or is there like a preference that you should have if you're a certain type of business?
I mean, we'll typically see the performance on Microsoft be maybe 20% up to 40% better than Google, just with lower volumes. And so depending on how big your budgets are, I mean, we would go in and say maybe do 50-50 and see how it goes, and then move money around based on performance or volume. Because if you've got like a big spender, they can buy all the traffic on Microsoft, that you might end up spending 80% on Google, just because you can't buy anymore. But rule of thumb is we go in at 50-50, 60-40, something like that, and kind of see where you get to. And particularly with B2B, because Microsoft does own LinkedIn, and if you want to advertise into B2B audiences, like certain job roles and all this sort of thing, they've got the LinkedIn audiences, which Google doesn't have.
Definitely. And then can you target the LinkedIn audiences outside of LinkedIn too? Because I know LinkedIn PPC is really expensive.
Yeah, no, on Microsoft Advertising, you can target LinkedIn audiences directly in the Microsoft platform.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people just think like Google, but it sounds like Microsoft might be a really big opportunity actually for a lot of people that might not have considered it in the past.
Yeah, we've actually got a number of kind of clients and partners we work with that have tested enough with the performance, and they're kind of very quantitative driven. And so they basically go and say, we're going to do everything on Microsoft and then spend whatever we can't spend there on Google. So they might even end up spending 70% on Microsoft and 30% on Google. I mean, that's kind of your top 1% of advertisers, but there is that opportunity.
Very interesting. When should you review your PPC campaigns? When should you consider like a pivot if your strategy isn't working?
I mean, in any kind of the natural rollout of PPC, the first 3 months, you just are collecting data. You don't know. I mean, a lot of times you got to set up your tracking, make sure your tracking works, set up your KPIs, and then eventually you'll start seeing what works. You define like, hey, this kind of lead I can pay $100 for, or this one's worth, it's worth 2,000 to me, and I'm happy to pay up to 25%. So I'd be happy to buy that one for say $500. And then it's just a matter of how many can you get at that price. And so it's a very dynamic business. So when you're first getting started, you're going to be kind of in it all the time. The first 3 months are pretty intense.
Yeah.
And then once you start working out the metrics, then you can kind of go out and work out, okay, how often do I check this, optimize this? You can't look at it too much because you need the data to collect.
Yeah.
But then once you've got kind of significant enough data, you can then make decisions and kind of go from there. And then there's always testing. So the best way we've seen to test is just kind of create a spreadsheet and say, okay, I'm changing this title, or I'm changing this copy, or I'm changing these keywords. This is my expected, what I'm hoping result to get. And then you come back after a week or 2 weeks and look at the data and say, okay, I thought it was going to improve. It actually went worse. So I'm going to revert that change. Or yeah, I thought it was going to improve. It did improve, so I'm going to keep the change. And you kind of, if you get very kind of just keep a log of all the changes, it's a lot better than making emotional decisions and then it goes somewhere you don't know why or what or whatever.
Yeah.
So if you want to get kind of analytical, that's the best way I've seen. Just keep a spreadsheet with the change, expected change. This is the date. This is the date I'm going to review it, and then you go check it and either keep it or revert it.
So it sounds like you got to be really meticulous and very patient are the keywords.
Yeah, because it's a strange business. You've got basically a lot of technical issues that could go wrong. So you've got to get the tracking and all this kind of stuff, and then you've got to be kind of creative and have the right copy and content and all that. And then it's very mathematically driven. So it's kind of three different disciplines, and often why you might. A business owner might do that if they're really focused on it, but it's often really hard for somebody to pick up if they don't have a team around them, which is why it often works well to go to an agency who has kind of teams of people that can solve. Like we've got a tracking team, we've got to support on this, because even like getting tracking working is fundamental, and some of the problems there are extremely difficult to solve, and most IT people don't know how to solve these kind of internet tracking issues. So as long as you find the support, then it can go.
Well. So it sounds like there's a lot of benefits with just working through you guys. Could you maybe highlight some of the benefits of working with Diginius Insights and your guys' platform overall, and not to mention the agency relationships that you guys already have?
Yeah, so if companies kind of manage things in house, then we'll support them and kind of give them a platform to automatically kind of report on all their spend, all their traffic, all their different things. We've got bidding engines to help automate things. We've got competitive intelligence, SEO tools, all this. And so if they're managing house, then when they have those questions, our customer success teams can help support those. And then if they need somebody to actually operate it for them, then we can recommend agencies that we work with that we know do a good job in a certain sector, and then we support the agency that then supports them.
Can you maybe highlight more how Diginius uses data to highlight maybe underperforming campaigns or keywords? Maybe unlocking hidden opportunities that they might not have seen in the data themselves?
Yeah, so like we've got tools where in the platforms you can run a lot of reports, but it can be extremely cumbersome to kind of run all that data. And so we've got tools that will kind of analyze it from a number of different angles and then pull out and just show, hey, here's all these different sources of traffic. Here's the conversions you're getting. Here's the traffic you're getting. And you can kind of sort by lowest performing, highest performing. And then you can click a button and automatically, stop buying certain traffic based on the performance. And so that's you kind of have to take all these things and compress them and then kind of give them in a way that's easy to consume or digest. And that's kind of typically how we'll, write these things to recommend where to. And generally in managing things, you want to look at the top 10% and the bottom 10%.
Yep.
And if you can figure out what's not working, the bottom 10%, cut it or fix it. And then whatever's at the top 10%, do more of that. Then the middle 80, you don't even have to worry too much about because it'll sort itself.
It'll kind of balance itself out over time if you're taking from the top and feeding it to the rest of them.
Yeah. And then dealing with the bottom, because once you dealt with one bottom, the next bottom will come, and then, just kind of do that. And that's how you typically manage kind of large portfolios.
Oh, that's a really smart campaign. That's a really smart strategy you got there. So in terms of what about social media, like TikTok or Meta ads? Do you see those as valuable for B2B marketers too? Especially a lot of people think that you can't target business people on TikTok or Facebook, but with the amount of data and the profiles that you could build for people, that definitely is possible. What are your thoughts on those channels?
Yeah, it's definitely possible. I mean, it's a different medium and a different way of kind of talking to them. LinkedIn is a little more obvious, right, on B2B. But if you can build out your kind of audience right and figure out how to reach those people, then it can be quite effective. And we've actually found, like on Meta with B2B, when we build custom audiences and advertise in Meta, you can get leads at about 10% the cost of direct PPC.
Oh, wow.
So you basically take all your targets, build their custom audience, load it up into Meta, and then advertise just to those people, and they match it to the
Yep.
email address. And you might, you're not going to match everything, get it perfect, but the return is incredible. And you can do that to all of the different platforms. So for for B2B, that's kind of the most efficient way we've found. I mean, you can still do if you can find the groups and all this kind of thing, but if you build your own custom audiences, that's the most efficient we've seen on Meta and TikTok and the social media platforms.
Yeah, the more targeted, the better. How did the privacy changes affect advertising, cookie deprecation, for instance? It sounds like there's still ways around that to really be able to identify people and retarget them.
Yeah, so the cookie deprecation was going on. That was being discussed for 2 or 3 years, and Google started to implement it, and then they basically, there's so much uproar in the industry, and it was so kind of pro Google, and the antitrust guys started getting involved, and they actually backed out of that.
Mm-hmm.
But there have been huge amounts like this cookie, the consent modes and allowing consent and all this kind of thing has had massive implications. You basically lose, I mean, from data we've seen, you lose about 30% of your visibility into traffic and tracking and all this, so it gets a little more opaque. So sometimes it makes sense that, like when I started doing PPC back when it kind of started 25 years ago, actually it's longer than 25, you didn't have you didn't have all these analytics tools and all this, and so you would just put a URL in there and just say, this is this is my ad, so I'm going to put this is my ad group, and you put a little question mark and equals or whatever, and put the name of it, and then you would use that to track if it worked or not. And sometimes you might even go back to some manual kind of out of system tracking just to kind of verify if the tracking's working or not. But generally, you just kind of work out what are the averages. You get a little less precise, and you target as best you can.
Yep. So do you know of any other trends that people should be aware of this year in advertising that they should really double down on? Obviously, we talked about AI. Anything else in PPC that they should be aware of?
I think getting the like for B2B SaaS, there's these guys that, I don't know if you come across SaaS Rise.
Yep, yeah. Our CEO loves going to their webinars.
Yeah, they're great. I mean, they've got a really nice system of how you do B2B marketing, and it's kind of a combination of cold email, um, and then building your audiences, loading those audiences into, you kind of do your general PPC, but then you do this audience based
Yep.
PPC on that. And then you kind of see who's interacting with you. And then you put your SDR teams and all that on there. And so kind of getting that mix right. I mean, what we've seen is that companies that try to rely only on PPC, because it's so expensive, it's very difficult to make it work well. So you need to have a more complex marketing strategy. So
Yep.
we'd say in B2B particularly, you want to have this combination of kind of PPC on keywords that you're targeting, but then you want to do the cold email outreach, and then you want to use that same cold email outreach and load that into your audience list and advertise
Yep.
in those audiences in all the media channels. And then you've kind of got a much better marketing and sales kind of approach to
Yep.
using kind of PPC and digital media and so forth. And then the other one that we found incredibly good is intent data. And so
Yep.
we've done a partnership with Bombora,
Yeah.
who's kind
On
of the
board's
global,
powerful.
yeah, and typically these big corporates will pay like 7 figures for that data, and
Yep.
it's almost the data before it gets to PPC. Like, what are people researching before they go and search and all that? And so we've actually built Bombora intent data into our platform, so
Very cool.
companies can set up their exact ICP, and then we can deliver them who every week who's in the market, and we even got free trials for that. So I'd say, yeah, for that, you might take a look at intent data, and then all these other forms of PPC on top of that.
Yeah, and for everybody listening, intent data could be something like they recently fundraised, and you could target them for like part of their GTM plans. Now that you know they have budgets and they're probably looking to grow faster, stuff like that. So it sounds like, yeah, for B2B, definitely need a lot of touch points, a lot of visibility. Don't expect overnight results from any of your campaigns. And have a lot of patience, and then yeah, you have to be meticulous with the data to kind of find the trends and see what's working. I also really like your idea of like the top 10% and the bottom 10%. I do think that's a great strategy to kind of optimize your campaigns and eventually get to a place where most of your campaigns are performing.
Yeah, yeah,
Very cool. So where can people learn more about Diginius and sign up for your guys' services?
yeah. If you go to our website, Diginius.com, or my LinkedIn or email, nate.burke@diginius.com. Happy to respond. We do have free trials, so you can set up a free trial, and our customer success team works really closely with our clients to, because we're just trying to figure out how do we make you successful. And if you're successful, then you'll pay us over time. If you're not, you leave. So
Yeah.
we work quite hard to um, get visibility into your data and the strategies and all that kind of stuff right. And because we do have experience with working with tens of thousands of companies, we generally know kind of the basic playbooks of, hey, this type of thing should work for your type of company. Or we've seen, if you're just going to spend a few $100,000 on LinkedIn ads, it's like, well, you might want to kind of mix that around to cover your customer a little better than just one channel and that sort of thing. So happy to kind of help figure out what works to get the foundation set up, and then automate all this reporting, because we kind of give you the ability to get reports back every day, every week automatically, instead of having to try to pull all the data down from all these different systems, and that kind of saves a lot of time as well.
Yeah, that's key. Yeah, it's that experience and the touch points that you guys have to be able to understand what works best for people. B2B advertising and marketing in general can be really expensive if you don't know what you're doing. So sometimes it's
Yeah,
just
one other thing that's really cool in B2B is we've got, like, we made some partnerships with some production houses and so forth, but we can buy with no minimums TV commercials on the streaming platforms, premium streaming. So Disney Plus, Netflix, Fox, all these different ones with no minimum. So if you load up your audience exactly who you want to target,
Wow.
And then you put a TV commercial on Netflix and all these other ones. They're like, wow, those guys must be big. I want to talk to them. And you can spend a
I
few
would have said
grand on
that.
it. And so, and if you don't know how to produce it, we've got production houses in London that we've agreed, we've got agreements with that can produce it for 5K and all that. So that's kind of another tip that some of our kind of B2B agencies that have worked with, particularly in the US market, those really kind of laser targeted B2B television commercials have had really good success.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't even know that was available with no minimums. I would assume if I see an ad too, and I've seen some of the companies that we have in our marketplace that they got some big bucks behind those programs. But that's interesting that a lot of SMBs could also access these same channels for relatively minimal cost.
Yeah, you can do audience lists, you can do postcodes, you can really just target exactly who you want, which this with broadcast TV, you've never been able to do that. But now with the premium streaming, and again, it's through like we can get people whitelisted because you can't just if you go to Netflix directly, they have huge minimums and all that, but we're able to kind of do it with no minimum buys.
Well, sounds like there's a lot of reasons for people to go through you.
Yeah. We've worked hard on a lot of relationships to kind of make life a little easier for the startups and kind of founder led companies.
Yeah, so am I going to start seeing Diginius ads on Netflix tonight when I'm watching TV?
I hope so. We'll see. So,
Well, Nate, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. For everybody listening today, you can go to diginius.com. That's Diginius. I did spell it right. There we go. And you could also pick it up in the B2B SaaS and AI marketplace on NachoNacho.com. We have a great partnership with you guys, and we look forward to growing our businesses together.
yeah, thanks a lot, Andy.
Thank you, Nate.